interesting. Now, personally, and of course, I want to hear your take on it. But personally, I don't think that one game is going to tell us everything we need to know. Like
Yeah.
if Russ is a problem, but I do think we could get some signs, right? Like if guys come
Yes.
out and they're seem reinvigorated, right? They seem re-energized. They seem like they're ready
Yeah.
to be to kind of turn over a new leaf, so to speak. Then yeah, um, I could see that kind of being a thing, and maybe they sit Russ out for a couple games, fixing that hamstring.
Yeah.
um, but I don't think either way. I don't think you're going to get like a major, like I like because look again, there's more problems with the Lakers than just Russell Westbrook, and
Yeah.
so I don't think those problems are going to get solved. But I do think you get a couple little insights uh, in this game. But what do you think? What do you think about it?
I don't. I think it's healthy for first and foremost. I think it's healthy. And when I found out, I was like, yeah, yes. I didn't want to like chat for it, but I was like, I'm a little happy just because I think that this is a kind of a final way to feel like we're starting to figure out if we're actually going to be better without him. Like you said, it's just one game. It's just one game.
Yeah,
But if you see everybody comes out with more energy, more intensity, like it could. And the thing is, too, it could be more than the performance. It could be like locker room. It could just be vibes. It could be like, hey, he just carries a certain type of aura with him that like we don't like being. We don't really know any of these things. We haven't heard them. Like it's all speculation at this point. But that's my secret theory. I feel like Russell carries a little bit more with him, like kind of off the court and just the aura that he carries. I just feel like he like kind of carries a I'm Russell, I'm gonna do whatever I want type vibe. You know what I mean? And like I do think he's a team player, but I do think he's done so much in his career. He does have a little chip on his shoulder. But no, I think it's healthy. I think we actually win this game, and I think Russell will be in his feelings a little bit. And not only that, I don't necessarily feel that Russell is sitting out because he has to. I feel like he's sitting out because he has been listening to the media. He's been listening to, all the critics and, people say that like this team is. But here's the thing though. We've been talking about this for a good minute now. It's not just Russell. And like you just brought up, this game is not, or Russell sitting is not going to fix the other things that we need to do. It's not going to fix the rebounding. It's not going to fix the shooting. But if it can fix the effort in which we do those things, I feel like that lets us know what we need to kind of do with Russell. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I still don't think we should make the Buddy Hill just to get him away. But yeah.
yeah.
So
I agree. I still don't think we should panic sell just to panic sell.
no.
Um, I do think, like I said, I do think it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think Russ is hurt because he's actually hurt.
Absolutely not.
I mean, he hurt. He had the hamstring injury in preseason. He's played fine as far as we know. The last few games. I just think this is kind of like their way of like, hey Russ, we're gonna try to see what this looks like without you. I think this is just kind of a test for the Lakers in their front office. I don't think, like you said, it doesn't fix the shooting, doesn't fix the rebounding. Um, might not even. The question is like who steps up and scores.
Yeah.
Because at least Russ was giving you. He gave you 10 points last game. He gave you 19 in game one. Um, just somebody else going to kind of step in that role and give you, 15 points tonight.
Yeah.
Austin Reeves is starting Austin Reeves is starting in replace of Russell Westbrook. So that's going to be
Yeah.
interesting. I think, like I said, I think Austin Reeves plays great with starting lineup, especially with
Yeah.
LeBron and guys like that. So I do think that it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
The question is like, if they look better, they come out, they win, everything, is looking right in the world for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with Russ? Because again, I don't think they panic sell.
Yeah.
But like, do you bring him off the bench? And if you bring him off the bench, is he going to be okay with that? Do you have him sit a little longer? It causes problems. And like I said, I even made a video, like breaking down this game and Austin Reeves and stuff.
Yeah.
And like in that video, I said like the Lakers are in a lose situation, right? Because if they start Westbrook and they continue to perform terribly, the media and just that dark cloud is going to be there. If they
Yeah.
bench Russ, then the media and the dark cloud is going to be there. If they sit Russ, then the media and the dark cloud is going to be there. It might actually be worse if they sit Russ and they just don't play him, because now the whole conversation is going to be about that. If the Lakers still aren't good, now the conversation is like, well, you guys were just so like it isn't Russ. You guys thought it was Russell Westbrook. So, you sat Russ and sent him
That's not
home.
fair.
Yeah, but that's what the narrative is. And if you send Russell Westbrook home, you're essentially giving up on Russell Westbrook. And so now the conversation is like, so you think you're better without Russ than with Russ, because that's what you'd be doing if you send him.
Yeah.
Home. So
yeah,
like,
no, that's true. You're
so
saying
I
a
think
statement.
so I think it's a lose situation no matter what. I think the only thing that you can do right now is try to weather the storm long enough to where you can be patient and find a viable trade. Because like last thing, like if the Lakers start 0-10, they got to do something. And now you're getting to the point where you're panic trading, right?
Yeah.
But if you can, like, let's say they win this game tonight and they look good, and let's say you sit Russ, and like let's say the Lakers go on like a 3-game winning streak, then I don't think you can bring Russ back and start him. I think you bring Russ back, you have him come off the bench, and your hope is that you can at least tread water long enough to find like a real trade. Because right now, if the Lakers try to do a trade or anything like that, like these teams know, like, okay, like we want everything.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a choice. You guys are, if the Lakers are 0-8 trying to make a trade, those teams are going to look at it as like, you're already 0-8. Like your season's done unless you do something. So guess what? We want both your firsts. Like, because at that point, now you're trying to, instead of trying to find a trade to give up like maybe one first or no first or whatever, now you're looking at like, okay, well, what's the best trade for both firsts? And like that's a bad position to be in if you're the Lakers. So it's gonna be an interesting game. It's gonna be an interesting like couple games potentially, depending on how things really kind of shape up here. But like what would you do with Russ? Like, say the Lakers win tonight. What is your game plan going forward for us?
If they win tonight, now before I answer this, I do want to know what is the what is the official status? Did now they tell him to like take this game off, or did he decide to take this game
off? No, it's a hamstring injury, is what it is.
Okay, so given that information, which we know what that really is, I would say what I want to do with Russ, I want to bench Russ and see where that takes us. So like, let's say we come out right, win tonight, and let's say I don't know, maybe instead of the other team out rebounding us like 20 or 10 like they did the last game, maybe they out rebound us like 5. You could live with that. You know what I mean? That's not necessarily going to determine the course of the game. Unless it's like a really close game, then maybe you can look at that, right? Let's say we knock down closer to 35-ish% from 3. So people are knocking down shots. Looking at those things now, does that necessarily contribute directly to Russ? Not necessarily, but after this game, I'm going to go ahead and just bench Russ and just have him like come off the bench, but not necessarily in a huge role still. Like diminishes like minutes, give him like maybe 15, 20, maybe minutes. Just kind of see where that goes. But like I said, have him run the second unit and just kind of go about it that way. Now, if we start to kind of digress again, not do the things that we're supposed to, then at that point, you either have to just bench him indefinitely or send him home, because if the Lakers have a vested interest in not doing so horrible this season, they're going to have to do something. And sooner than later, probably. But I do agree with you. It would be worth to wait to get a trade, but 0-20, I don't want to I'm not saying we're going to get there, but just like
well, yeah, you don't want to be in a position you can't come back from. You know what I mean? And like that's kind of the fear is like.
So how do you time it though? How do you time it? Because we know 20 games is ideal, but like how do you time it? Like what's your record of like absolutely not we need to do something like now before it gets too bad.
I would give it the first 10 games because
Okay.
like if we're like 2-8,
Yeah.
then it's time to panic. If we're like 5-5, I think we're good. I think you're okay. I think
Okay.
you could tread water. Um, if you're like, if you're like, I don't know, like 4-6, maybe you kind of give it a couple more games. But
Yeah.
like if like like that, or unless the Lakers start like 0-6 or 0-7, then I think you need to panic. I do.
Yeah.
I think you gotta do something.
No, that's huge panic mode. I mean, tough games or no, 7 games out of the
Yeah.
first 7 games of the season, you haven't won a single game. Not
Oh,
a
yeah.
single game.
Exactly. Like if they
Like,
like, let's say they win tonight.
yeah,
Let's say they beat like Minnesota. Minnesota looks dysfunctional right now. They look like a team
yeah,
that could be beat. So like, let's say you win that. Now you're 2-3. I don't think you have to panic. I think you can. I think you can be patient, right? Um,
yeah,
but like if we lose tonight, now we're 0-4. We
yeah.
lose to Minnie, now we're 0-5. We lose to Denver again, now we're 0-6. I think it's time to panic.
Oh, what you
Because
just mentioned right there, that Denver, if you lose to Denver twice, you lose to the
yeah,
same team. Like, you know what I
and
mean?
like
Like,
I think they play in like the 5 day span. They play like
you
twice
had
in
time to
5 days
make
or whatever.
adjustments, watch tape, watch game film. Here's what we didn't do. Like, let's correct it. I know home court advantage plays a lot of like into that, but like if you let the same team beat you twice for like, you know what I mean? Like, especially if it's like close games, like that's a bad sign. That's a really bad sign.
Yeah, it's yeah. So I just think it depends on how do they how do they look.
Yeah.
How like like I said, I'd give it about 10 games. Um, I'd give it about 10 games and just see where where we're at. Because like I
Yeah.
said, if we're like 5-5, I think you can wait. I think you're okay. I think you can be patient. If you're like, you know, 2-8, I think it's
Yeah.
panic mode. If you're like 4-6, I think you could give it a
Yeah.
couple more games. Like I said, I think for the Lakers, I think all you can do right now is just try to weather the storm as long as possible. Just
Yeah.
try to stay afloat as long as possible so that way you could find a deal. Right? Luckily, nobody right now is like outside of Portland,
Yeah.
but nobody right now is like world beater. Like nobody's killing it. Like you don't have like the top 5 teams are all like 3-0, 4-0, right? Like you have Portland, and then everyone else is kind of just like 2-1 right now. So
Yeah.
you're in a like you're not in a terrible position to where it's like, okay, like we are already 4 games behind everyone else. Like
Yeah.
we're in trouble, and I think also it depends on how everybody else is looking, right? Like, so if 10 games in, everything's kind of level, and like I said, you're like say 4-6 or 3-7, and like you're only like a game out of like sixth place, then you can be patient. You know what I mean? Like, because that's another thing that I don't think, and I haven't even really talked about in the equation that I think is worth talking about also is just like,
Yeah.
where are we compared to everybody else?
Okay.
Like if we're like obviously if we're 0-10, yeah, we need to panic, like I said. But if we're like, you know, 3-7 and like, everybody's kind of like, 4-6,
Yeah.
6-4, things like that, then I don't think you need to like panic. I think I think you can kind of be patient a little bit more. Um, but it's definitely it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the next few days go. But
Are
anyway,
you
let's jump.
anticipating that? Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just
No,
gonna,
no, no. What? Ask
are
me.
you anticipating that no team has like a really really good season? Like I feel like that's kind of where we're going. Like I feel like,
I mean, there's going to be a team that wins like 60 games this season because it's just how it goes every year.
well, yeah, but like
But
we're not gonna have like a crazy
well,
like
even last season, for example, right? Like even last season, like teams like the sixth seed was only won like 48 games or something like that. Like so,
yeah
like it's not like the top 6 teams won 55 games.
yeah
Like so, like even like the seventh seed. which was the Clippers won, I think, 43 games, something like that, 44 games, something
Yeah,
off the top of my head. Like, so it's not like all
barely
these
half the
teams.
season.
Yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. Like, so like the Lakers only, if we're going off of like last season, which it's kind of shaping up to be, then you only
Yeah,
have to win like 45 games to be in the playoffs. Maybe 48 games to get into the if you want to
yeah,
get the 16. So like like with that in mind, gives you a little wiggle room, like I just think it comes down to like what are we after 10 games and like where are we as far as standings go. If
yeah,
we're like, 3-7 and we're like 4 or 5 games out of sixth place, then yeah,
yeah.
you probably gotta like it's time to start looking. Um, Good news, Brooklyn just lost again, so that's good. Another loss for Brooklyn. I mean, they're
Oh
down
my
10 with
goodness.
46 seconds left. So
I have a strange feeling that I just have a weird feeling that like Kyrie and KD, they trust Ben Simmons to do certain things, but I don't think that they necessarily look at him as like that third solid option. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I'm not getting that vibe. And you just can watch them play and
Well,
I,
he's not working out the way that they had
well,
hoped.
not to mention
He's
the
not even
defense,
working out the
he
way that
fouled out
I
the other
thought.
night.
Yeah, well, he's fouled out in two of the first 3 games.
Like
Uh,
and like he's known for his I would say his best quality is his defense, but like he
yeah,
can't like without his defense. I not no disrespect to Ben Simmons. You lose like your key element of your
yeah,
like yourself as a player because that's him. Like his defense is it. But
yeah. Well, real quick before we, because I do want to jump into the chat.
okay,
Real
okay.
quick before we jump into the chat is like, look, so Brooklyn's what? Well, they're 1-3 now. 1-3 now. Yeah.
Yeah,
The only team they beat was Toronto, and they barely squeaked out a win against Toronto. Um,
and
like,
that's not like a bragging like, hey, we won against Toronto. Like
yeah,
that's
but that's what I'm saying. Like, they're losing against, they're not beating the good teams. Like, they're not even
yeah,
competitive against the good teams. Like, and
yeah,
that is the problem. Like, will they beat like OKC? Probably, but they can't play any defense. They're not putting up the score. Like, I really think this team is going to implode. And here we go for the Laker game starting. But like, I really think this team is going to implode. I really do.
and
I
on
think.
paper they're like arguably what you would say the best team in the
I think on
East
paper they
on
might be.
paper.
Yeah, I mean, you can make an argument they might be the best team in the league on paper,
Yeah, yeah,
but
you could. Yeah, you could. Yeah, that's
but
true.
they don't have they don't have any defense, and they just don't look good. That's the problem. Like, if they were looking half decent and just losing games, like, all right, they just need to kind of get over that hump. They're in a little funk or whatever. But no, they just look bad.
I'll
Like,
tell you who is looking good though. Their ex teammate James Harden.
yeah, they just look like James Harden looks good. The Philly
That's
doesn't.
no, that's
Philly
what I'm
looks
saying. Like, yeah,
Philly looks
no,
terrible. But Harden looks like the old James Harden again. He's
yeah,
nice
no, really.
again.
I'm like, I love to see that. I'm like, please come back, come back.
Yeah. Did they lost again today? Philly's 1-3 too. Like,
Yeah.
man, or no, they're 1-4, right?
So I
Something like that.
mean, well, okay. So, but yeah, like you said, 1-3, 1-4. And you got 0-3. Like, we're really not that far behind against the
That's what I'm
team
saying.
that was
Compared to
expected to
compared
be
to
like,
most teams, we're
you
not.
know,
We're not like compared to most teams in the league right now. We're not. Come on, make your free throws, AD. Compared to most teams in the league, we're not that far off. The
yeah.
game's on. If you don't have the game on, the game's on ESPN, by the way.
Oh, I was just pulling it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. It just started. 2-2. But real quick, let's dive